Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, the podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. Today's guest is actually two people, so we have guests coming out of the multiverse. They are the podcast hosts of Zeng This, which you have frequently heard me talk about on several of the introductions. You've heard their ad running ahead of some of the episodes that you guys might have been checking out. I am so pleased to have my first podcast host joining me, Ellie and Zenger of Zeng This. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. It's great.
It'll be easy to differentiate you both because there's been times where I've had duos on and they were both like women or both guys, and it's very much easier to do it with a guy and a girl.
I hope so.
So I guess let me first ask you, like, how long have you guys been into fandom? Was it at a young age? Do you remember like your first real fandom that you guys got into?
Well,
ladies first.
Oh, thank you. I'll start. I was a closet geek. So when I really liked it from a very, very early age. I'd say probably started reading comic books in late middle school and really loved it, played video games. But I definitely did not let my friends at school know. So it's probably more into my college years that I actually started letting my geek flag fly. It just wasn't a big thing. It wasn't as cool for a female to really be into comic books and video games. So it was pretty early for me, but most of my friends didn't know about it until a lot later.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you, Zinger?
I guess my origin story would begin years ago. No, I'm kidding. Mine, I guess the first fandom that I got into was, I guess, Transformers. Really, if I want to be honest, because my older half brother used to watch they used to record the shows for him, and he'd watch them and everything, and he'd watch the movie, the old 1986 movie, and everything. And I used to watch it with him, and I really loved that show. So that's kind of, I guess, where my fandom started. I mean, of course, Saturday morning cartoons, the X-Men, Batman the Animated Series, stuff like that kind of got me more into comics and leading into that direction. And it's just kind of grown ever since then.
It's like an unstoppable force. There's always
it truly is.
There's always that first taste. Like, and Saturday morning cartoons is definitely up there, but I remember like mine was like Star Trek. Star Trek and Lord of the Rings were like those initial entry points for me. And it's all downhill from there.
It's a good downhill.
It is. It really is. And it's amazing. I mean, it's been 20 years since I graduated high school. And back then, you would be made fun of if you liked Star Trek, which I did. And I even wore, like, my Star Trek uniform to school one day for like, an interview about Star Trek with the newspaper. But it's interesting how far we've come to where we have shows that everybody's watching, Game of Thrones or the Marvel Cinematic Movies or everything from our childhood has now evolved into things that are cool and everyone's into it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember rushing home. Even I'm really embarrassed to admit this, but I'll go ahead. Even rushing home from high school so that I could make sure to watch Power Rangers when I got home. So it's really embarrassing. But, yeah, even Power Rangers I loved watching, even at that age.
There's no shame in that. I remember it debuted in 93, and I was a freshman in high school, and I just started working at a Golden Corral, and I got people into the show that were older than me, like, just watching it, and I have no clue how they got into it, because, like, what are you doing? You're, like, 40, and I'm
right.
I'm 13 or 14 and watching this stuff.
Yep. And I want to see the movie. We haven't seen it yet, Zinger. We need to go watch it.
We need to get to work on that.
Yeah, I was supposed to watch it, but man, we had some timing issues and kids getting sick, and it just did not happen.
We feel
I feel you on that.
So one of the things that I mentioned was the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I think one of the things that you guys both are very much into are superhero movies. Maybe not so much Marvel, but Marvel's done a whole bunch of them.
Right.
Yeah, I'd say we're pretty into the Marvel side and
usually
trying to get into the DC side.
I was going to say, if one of the movies comes out, we're pretty much there to buy it when it first comes out, so.
From either studio, too.
Yeah, either one. Yep.
And I know on the Zeng This podcast, it's very much like when I listen, and I feel so bad for you, Zenger, when it's like a long suffering. Every week there's something wrong with the DC side of things.
Yes.
I kind of don't want to do updates on them, but I have to. It's like
it's addictive.
It's like I'm like, okay, this week I'm going to try not to get any DC news. Hopefully this week I can go without any DC news. Oh, great, they just fired everyone involved in this movie. Well, I guess I got to talk about it. So, I mean, I want them to do good. I enjoy certain aspects of what they've already done. It's just I don't think they've got pieces. They just need to put it together. And
they're killing it on the TV front.
Yes.
Oh,
they
absolutely.
Definitely are.
Yeah, so they need to just take what's working and what's great with Arrow and Legends of Tomorrow and Supergirl and on all those and Flash and bring those into the movie spectrum. So
definitely. I mean, I remember reading as a producer or someone that was involved on the DC side of things, and they said, we never really took into account what would happen if one of our movies did poorly or did bad, because they're laying out this huge timeline of the next 5 years of movies. Yeah. And right now they've had Batman versus Superman, which made money but was destroyed by everybody. And then Suicide Squad, which had all the reshoots to make it more like Guardians of the Galaxy with the comedy stuff. And I mean, I am hoping for Wonder Woman because I just want to see a female superhero on the big screen, and it looks good.
Super excited.
And then Justice League looks good, but I'm not into it for Batman. I'm into it for Aquaman and Wonder Woman.
I think they've done a great job with Aquaman. I've actually, and Ellie can attest to this, I've actually read some of the graphic novels for Aquaman and really enjoyed them. I think that he's an interesting character that most people are like, oh, he talks to fish, and he's just
so powerful.
I know, he's an interesting character, and I really like that they have, Jason Momoa playing him, that he looks like fantastic as the character and everything, so I hope that they can do a great job with it, because I want to see that movie. Like, if DC can't do anything else right, just please give us a good Aquaman movie.
Right.
And I think that's the problem. They're trying to spread out too much and trying to build this universe and not focusing on, let's just get one movie done and done right.
Absolutely. And I know that, and I've talked about this with other people about Aquaman specifically, a lot of us grew up with orange shirt, green tights, Aquaman who rides on a seahorse or a dolphin or whatever.
Well, this Aquaman is so manly.
Yeah, this Aquaman, and I know that there's some great comic runs of him recently where he definitely looks more rugged and not Super Friends worthy. Yeah, if we're going down that route. But I almost wonder. Well, and just out of curiosity, do you think that they are doing the Justice League movie too early, that they should have done individual movies beforehand, or do you think it's going to work with them doing the Justice League movie after the Wonder Woman movie?
All right, I was trying to get Ellie to chime in first, but she's telling me no, so I'll go ahead and give my opinion on this. If the Marvel Cinematic Movie universe didn't exist, I think they would have been better to do individual movies leading up to this point.
Okay.
Just like Marvel did. The problem is, since Marvel did that, everyone's going to be like, you're copying Marvel, so they kind of got to go at this at a different angle. And sadly, it's kind of introduced the big crossover first and then spread out from there.
Okay.
Which I don't think is a problem, because the Justice League for New 52 actually kind of started that way, to where it was them all meeting for a epic battle that they had to all be involved in. And then kind of the rest of the New 52 kind of picked up on what happened afterwards.
Okay.
So I guess they're vaguely going off the comics for that, but I mean, I want it to work, and I think that they should have done it a different way, but due to the fact that they're trying to compete with Marvel, they had to kind of rush things along.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I mean, excuse me. I like the way, like, Netflix does it for, like, having all the individual ones leading up to the Defenders.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that works for quick TV shows, but I think the time it would take to have to put out each individual movie, that could be years from now before they'd be able to have the Avengers movie.
I mean, the cinematic universe for Marvel started in 2007, I want to say.
It's been a while.
It's been a long time. I mean, it has tons of movies contributing to it.
I just feel like sometimes when they do these individual movies, even though they're trying to do individual, they're so worried about, like we've said before,
setting up the next plot
that it ends
point.
up not even being an individual movie anyway. So at that point, you should just go ahead and do the big come
together movie.
Yeah.
Okay, and at least with this, they're getting it out of the way on the DC side of things, especially if they happen to have actor issues or contractual stuff. They can make changes after or extend certain contracts. Like if people take to Aquaman, they can extend a multi-picture deal to Jason Momoa if he doesn't already have one, or decide to change lanes, so to speak, with, okay, Batman's not working, but now we have, as news has broken recently, Joss Whedon might be doing the Batgirl.
Yes.
And maybe instead of doing a Batman series, they do a Batgirl run and then reincorporate Batman as just one of those like cameo characters or ones that show up in just the big movies.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think that would work, and it would be really cool. And I'm all for having some more main female hero love in these movies, so
Absolutely.
I'd be all for that. Still waiting for Captain Marvel. Hurry up.
And Captain Marvel got pushed because they had that arrangement with Sony and doing Spider-Man ahead of it, so she got pushed back, and it's such a shame between that and the lack of a Black Widow movie at this point, and who knows if we'll ever see that. So do you guys have a favorite, like, DC character that you're looking forward to movie-wise? Has it come out yet, or are you more looking forward to the ones that are coming out?
Personally, I'm really looking forward to Wonder Woman. I really enjoy that character, and what she represents. I know that some people give her crap because she's supposed to be this amazing Amazon woman that can do anything, and then her origin story, they point out how, she falls for a man and starts following him. Yeah. So it's
one of her origin stories.
Yes, one of her origins. But I still love her. I think being in love and wanting to pursue that is not a weakness, it's a strength. It shows her, personality and her humanity side of herself. So Wonder Woman, though, that is definitely one I'm really looking forward to. What about you?
And on my end, they have already done the character I would love to see done cinematically, and it was Green Lantern.
Okay.
Oh.
And I actually do own the movie. I did. We saw it in theaters, and I did buy it, and I want them to do well with that character. I loved Jeff Johns' run on Green Lantern. I own every individual issue of his entire run. I own all the graphic novels. I will read it at the drop of a hat. I loved what the world building he did, the universe building he did, the linking continuity, just everything he did with that series was so amazing.
It is phenomenal.
And then they didn't do anything with it in the movies, and the suit, it's just, I could sit here forever and just be one of those people that dogs that movie, but I think they could do a great job with it if properly introduced. Do I want to see them do everything Jeff Johns did with it? No, because it would take multiple movies. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to see Green Lantern in there and him be the character, because he is a great support to the Justice League. He's a link to, the fact that, there's stuff going on Earth, but I also protect an entire section of the universe on top of it.
Right.
So that's an interesting, interstellar aspect and, getting it out into space. And if DC wants to compete, let's say, with a certain other franchise that's space-based in the Marvel universe, Green Lantern is the perfect vessel to do that with. You've got an almost infinite amount of characters. You've got several Earth-based ones. You got plenty of very out there characters. You got a living planet that's even a character, even though the new Guardians of the Galaxy might be dealing with a living planet too. But still, it's got a fantastic mythos to it that they could utilize, and they just kind of dropped the ball on it, I feel.
And I feel like you were going to say a different character.
Oh, which one were you thinking?
Oh, definitely Booster Gold.
We don't have enough time. We don't have enough time for me to explain my love of Booster Gold.
Yeah, don't get him started.
Okay. Well, to be fair, I'm more of a Marvel guy. Like I know of DC characters just through basic like comic lore, or my friends talked about DC stuff. But like you get into the character like recent comic runs, or even the stuff not recent, like maybe the past 10 or 15 years, like I have no clue beyond like the big three and then some of the outliers. I know like Booster Gold was a character that had come up in conversation a few times, and I thought that at one point someone had suggested Nathan Fillion play Booster Gold.
Yeah.
That would work really well.
Yeah, he'd be great for it.
Because Booster Gold's kind of just a man out of time, technically, but he kind of self-imposed. Let me see if I can do this real quick. Basically, he's from distant future, and he can't be a superhero in the future, so instead he comes to the past to become a superhero. And basically steals a ton of equipment to become a superhero in our present, but his past. That basically sums it up, and he's kind of a punchline. But there's more stuff that develops with him. But like I said, if you want that, go read some of the stuff with him in it. It's a lot of fun, actually.
Well, and to piggyback off that, the way Nathan Fillion plays the character in Dr. Horrible Sing-Along
would be perfect.
That the way he portrays that superhero reminds me of, how he could play
Booster Gold.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if anybody out there listening has seen it. It's fantastic with Neil Patrick Harris and oh my gosh, I'm forgetting. Thank you, Felicia Day. So it's really awesome.
Yes, Dr. Horrible is one of those amazing things that it came out the right time, the right place, and it's
with all the right people.
Yeah,
with all the right people, absolutely.
Captain Hammer.
yes, Captain Hammer. And you can't forget about Bad Horse.
Yep.
The villain that is actually a horse.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So, going to the Marvel side of comic book movies, do you guys have a favorite of the MCU that's out, or is your favorite going to be coming out eventually, or hopefully?
Well, I know Ellie's answer for that. Her favorite, that is.
Oh, Miss Captain Marvel? Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, whatever you want to call her.
Carol Danvers.
Yes. She is, I'm actually staring at a pop figure of hers, and I love her, everything she stands for. She is crazy strong, and she can kick anybody's butt, and she's amazing. So yes, they need to hurry up, because I really want to see a movie with her in it.
And I guess on my side, I mean, I'm a big Thor fan.
Okay.
So seeing him come to the big screen and them carrying a lot of his goofy kind of, the Rainbow Road and, Mjolnir and all these crazy names for everything, and Elfheim and Himmelgar and all these crazy things that they brought up in the comics being transitioned over, like, I went into that movie very nervous and came out of it loving it, because I was like, I don't know if they can do it, because they're either going to detach it so far away or it's going to look silly, and they did it perfectly. So I really like the Thor movies. I'm very excited about Ragnarok.
Yeah, it looks great.
So that looks great. So that's one of my favorite characters to get to see it on screen. I don't know about one they haven't done yet that might be on its way out. I mean, seeing the whole Infinity War thing would definitely be really cool, and I never in a million years thought Guardians of the Galaxy would be a thing.
I definitely went into that movie going, okay, I'll watch it, but this is going to be so cheesy. Which, it does have cheesy parts, obviously.
But it's good.
It works, it works wonderfully.
Absolutely. And I remember, going back to Thor, I remember them, when they had announced it, everyone was really nervous. But, I mean, that you had Iron Man and you had Captain America at that point. And with Thor, it's so out there there was a real nervousness of the community, the Marvel community and everybody, because they didn't know how well it would translate. And I think part of what made it go so well was their choice of director with Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah.
You know, with that whole, like, his whole background in Shakespearean stuff, Thor really translates well when you're playing it with, like, kind of with that theme in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I have to say, though, I do not like Thor 2. That was a weak movie.
No offense. I mean, I'm in the same boat. I like the first one. The second one was sort of, they had to move certain pieces into place.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's the only negative thing I have to say about the Marvel movies right now, is I feel like some of them, they're trying to move just pieces into place for other things that are coming, while still successfully doing sort of a good movie, but I think a lot of them sometimes they're transitioning from one thing to the next.
Right. I know I'm looking forward to, with Guardians of the Galaxy 2 coming out, they've had interviews where they're like, it has nothing to do with the main Marvel Cinematic Universe storyline. Like, there's no Infinity Stones, Thanos isn't in it, as far as what they're telling the press about the movie. So I'm looking forward to it being a standalone movie. I am disappointed that the Nova Corps is not going to be in it, because that is one of my favorite characters comes from there. Richard Rider, Nova.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love him. I wish he would show up at some point, but at this stage, I don't see it happening.
I mean, the Nova Corps is very much like the Green Lanterns of the Marvel Universe to an extent. So, I mean, it would be interesting to see them in there. I like what they did with them. I would, of course, like to see someone flying around in a suit with a helmet on, though, too.
Right.
But I agree with you. I don't see how they could do it, but I'm not saying it's impossible for them to do it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's totally possible if they commit to doing a space theme or space section portion of the Marvel Universe that maybe can just go play in its own sandbox and not really be tied to what they're doing with Doctor Strange, or if they're doing any more Captain America movies or Iron Man movies.
Well, who knows what after Infinity War happens, what's going to be. Like, are they going to continue with these? Are they going to have new characters? Is it going to reset a lot of the status quo? Are they going to do something really big to shake things up? I mean, who knows? I'm excited to see where this could go, is my biggest thing that I'm excited about.
Well, and I thought Doctor Strange had a great balance of, like, it was its own movie, but it still kind of hinted at the universe. I
think we pointed that out in our discussion on it, that it did enough. It had its own movie, but it did enough little. And let's move this along in the cinematic universe for you. Let's point that this is a time gem, or that this is this is one of the stones, and here's a little teaser, spoiler alert.
But it wasn't overwhelming. It still focused on him. Yeah. So I liked that part of it.
Yeah, that was one of the things I did like about Doctor Strange, that it was definitely more its own movie versus, say, Captain America Civil War, where it's a Captain America movie with all his friends.
Exactly. I think I know that one gets brought up a lot for a punching bag by people, and I mean I'm not disagreeing with them, but I am agreeing with them at the same time that it did a good job with the Captain America story that was available, but I think they could have fleshed his story out better, but they wanted to do the Civil War thing.
It should have just been labeled Civil War.
It should have just been.
I don't see the point in putting Captain America with it.
Civil War.
Right.
Yeah.
No Captain America.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I know for me, moving forward, beyond the Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I'm definitely looking forward to both the Captain Marvel movie, but I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with Black Panther.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
But that casting is amazing. I'm psyched to see if Bucky even shows up in it. Like, I know he's frozen at this point, but if he shows up at the end, or, like, they figure out something to do with him. But the entire cast is just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. I'm definitely excited for that. Black Panther is a really cool character. I thought they did an excellent job with him in Civil War, the way he looked, all of it. I want to say he stole every scene he was in, but sadly there was a friendly neighborhood character that also stole every scene they were in too. So those two being in that movie were the most impressive things I thought. Was having those two in it just was amazing in my opinion.
I mean, do you like the fact that Iron Man's going to be in the new Spider-Man movie? Or do you think it should be left out and it should just be focusing on Spider-Man?
He's being a parent to. He's trying to be a parent to him. I think that might be establishing Tony's still trying to help protect the Earth from what's possibly coming, because it's been pointed out that he knows that there's something coming, and he's trying to prepare for it. Sadly, by tearing apart every team he's involved with, but but I think that he's trying to get this kid with him so that he can have somebody to help him fight this war that he perceives is on the way. So that's my guess on why they want to have him involved.
Okay.
Right. Now, one of the questions I always like to ask my guests, especially when it comes down to Marvel movies, is if you had the power to make a Marvel movie happen with a character that has not been on the big screen, who would it be?
You first, Ellie.
Oh, no, don't make me go first. That makes me...
Now, to give you a little bit more time, one of the ones that is always pitched is Kamala Khan as Miss Marvel.
Ah, let's see here. Okay, I got one. This is just me off the top of my head because I was not expecting this question, but why not She-Hulk?
There you go.
That would be a
one.
great female character. She's definitely can hold her own in a fight. And I mean, if you go back to her, I don't want to tip my hand to a possible future Zeng This topic, but weird stuff in comics, she was a fourth wall breaking character before Deadpool was a fourth wall breaking character. So I don't know if you want to implement even that into the movie, but that would be, I don't know, just having a good, strong female character that, I mean, I'm sure Captain Marvel is going to fill this spot perfectly, but that can go toe-to-toe with, you know, the big boys and everything. Not saying that Black Widow or Scarlet Witch or any of the other characters can't, but I'm just saying I think that would be a cool one to have in there as someone who has more control over the Hulk form than Banner does.
Right.
True. Gosh. I guess if I would have to pick anything, it makes me think back of a comic book series. I have a run with Rogue and Gambit. I love that whole love story between them. So I really like Rogue as a character. She's really interesting.
Now, would you have her have, you know, her early 90s powers where she has, like, can strength and can fly, or the movie version where she just absorbs?
No, I think I'd prefer her earlier one to make her a more well-rounded character.
Awesome.
I think that would be really, really cool. Yeah.
Okay. Definitely interesting choices. I know, you know, whenever they talk about the Netflix shows, just to dive into that for a moment, that She-Hulk is always one of the ones that comes up with saying, you know, if they ever get away from the Daredevil, Iron Fist, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage trio, or quad, that a She-Hulk Netflix series would be something to be entertaining.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I could very easily see that working really well.
Okay. And going away from the comic movies in general and switching over to something else that you guys have both been into recently, and I have it on my Steam account, yet still unplayed at this point, is the video game series Mass Effect.
Oh, yes.
Now, Mass Effect's been out for, I don't know, 10 years now at this point?
2000, yeah, it was 2017. I mean, 2007. Sorry.
Sounds like 17.
Yeah, I had to say the year first.
Right.
Subtract back from.
Okay.
So, how did you both get in? Because you're both into Mass Effect. So, was there something that made you interested in it before, like, for either of you, that made you answer the call to be a Shepard, a Commander Shepard?
Hold on.
No.
I'll tell the origin. I'll tell the beginning part of it.
No.
Fine.
Yes, I'll fight him for this part of the story. So, basically, I love role-playing games in general. And I love this. The first game really just was so exciting for me because it's a space opera and it has the role-playing elements, but you also get to shoot or you can use biotics. So it was really well-rounded as far as how you could play the game. And I remember playing it, and I don't know if we want to mention where we were, but we were in the same area working, so to speak. And he came to me and he told me, he was like, It's all right.
It was before the second game came out, and you were wondering why I was not excited about it.
I know, and because I, basically wanted to take off work and be able to play it the day it comes out. And he's like, kind of like, it's not that good. I didn't really care for it. And I basically shoved the first one down his throat, and I said, you have to play this again. What are you doing? You're crazy. Why are you saying all this terrible stuff? So I basically forced him to replay it again, and then you can continue the story from there.
I hands down loved the game. I was blown away by this, like the second time I played it, because the first time I think I focused on too much character building and not properly speccing my character out. So I just could not get anywhere in the game. I just kept getting stuck at places. I'm like, I don't get this. I'm not doing that well with it. So I was like, whatever. And then when I replayed it, she kind of gave me some pointers on what to do to begin with. And I, got into it, got into the story, fell in love with all the characters. I love Rex was one of my favorite characters. And I played through the game. I played through the game, beat it, and then found out that Rex was in the sequel. And sadly, he died in my first playthrough of the first game. And I immediately sat down and played through the entire game again just to make sure he'd be alive so that I could continue the story in the second game with him being alive. So after that point, I did fall in love with the game after properly playing it, I guess, and being properly motivated.
I had to school him on how to play it correctly.
And I love the second one, the third one, and of course I'm sure we're about to talk about Andromeda, and I've enjoyed that one so far as well. Even though I had to restart that one because apparently my character was ugly, according to Ellie.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Okay, everybody's gonna think I'm a horrible person. So he was sitting there playing it, and I could not stand to watch the screen anymore because I don't know what was going on with his eyes. But one was like 3 inches higher than the other one, and it was just really freaking me out. But I didn't think he would go as far as to restart it. Weren't you like 3 or 4 hours into the game?
I was like 5 or 6.
Aw, okay, I'm sorry.
And I just today got back to where I was.
Yeah. Now, Ellie, since it is brought up, what is the proper way to play Mass Effect? Because I have very limited time. We all have kids, and so I get maybe like an hour or two a week to really like start to try and play it. So I haven't played it yet, but I've got Mass Effect on my computer. Please tell me how I should start playing.
First rule, do not customize your character. Use the standard character. She'll make fun of you for whatever you do with it.
No. Are you talking about the very first Mass Effect? Or
the very first.
Okay.
The very first.
Well, see, sometimes Zenger gets a little too crazy and so worried about being a tank when he makes things. And so you really have to have a nice balanced character and not just do all your skill points into, just...
There's no kill quite like overkill.
But it's really important to kind of have a nice mix of biotics and of, just actual shooting and fighting. And I think that's where he went wrong.
Also focused too much on the speech element of it before it was even necessary. That's another thing I went wrong on.
You're talking about like having charisma points.
I tried to max that out to begin with.
Okay.
And
you can't do that because you can work on that later. So and it was weird because it's obviously changed so much over the years in the different games of how you spec your characters because it's completely different now. With the game now, you aren't so set in just doing one tree line. You can actually pick stuff from all kinds of different skill trees. So that's kind of fun with that is you don't have to stick so much to one particular one. You can branch out a lot more.
I still just play it as a shooter.
I don't, but we play very differently. That's the thing with us.
But that's the fun thing about Mass Effect is it's an accommodating game that allows you to play running in, shooting up everything.
I mean, how do you like to play?
Yeah.
Do you have a certain style when you make a character? Do you like to set them up a certain way?
I mean, really, like table. I don't Mass Effect is the game where I looked at it and it was the same thing with Dragon Age.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I am so old school that I have trouble doing anything like action-y, like Legend of Zelda or anything Kingdom Hearts, where you're trying to do multiple things, multiple buttons.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason I've always stayed away from Mass Effect, is that they say it's an RPG, but it's also like a first-person shooter-ish type game. And I always have trouble. If it's not Wolfenstein or the original Doom from the 90s, I cannot play anything where I'm shooting and looking up or strafing or multiple buttons. It just doesn't work.
Well, I kind of tend to focus more on, like in Mass Effect, I use a lot of biotics, which is more like mage type stuff.
Okay.
And then I really like the melee part. You have the it's Justin, help me out here.
Push, pull.
You stab people.
The Omni Blade.
Right. So I like to focus on upgrading like the Omni Blade and using the melee attacks, and then if I'm up close I do that, and then if I'm farther back I do more of the biotics powers and that sort of thing. So I actually don't play it a lot with the guns itself. I do more of the other stuff. So you don't have to play it with the shotguns or the assault rifles or sniper or anything like that.
On that note, I've unlocked my 4th holster, so I can carry all 4 weapons now.
I've already done that. No. Sorry, we're going to start getting our competitive sides are going to come out.
That is okay. I had a guest couple on here about sometime in September, Jesse and Lara, and they had met over a disagreement on how to play Mass Effect.
Wow,
that is
sounds
fantastic.
familiar.
That's great.
Yeah, it's always a fun thing to find out how everyone plays Mass Effect and which paths they go down and who they romance or they get involved with.
I know. I'm trying to decide that. I'm playing as the male writer.
In the new one.
In the new one.
Okay.
And I was not a fem shep. I played Commander Shepard, the male version. So, and I know, Justin, you made both, right?
Yes. For my Paragon, I was male Shepard. For my Renegade, I was...
Oh, of course you made the female the Renegade.
I was B-word Shepard for my female one. So that was fun to play that as. But yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, did I romance anyone as female Shepard? I don't even think I did.
I
think I was too busy just being mean.
She didn't have time for love.
Just time for more guns.
So you guys you both have been playing the new one, which is Mass Effect Andromeda.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Are you liking it? Is it comparable to any of the original 3? Is it in its own category? What are your thoughts on it?
I'm gonna go first. You've got too big of a smile on your face right now.
Yeah, you go.
Well, having to replay the start of it twice now.
Just dig it in there. Just dig.
The original trilogy for me is an amazing game series. Once I did get into it and played it through thoroughly and did it properly and enjoyed it, I hail that as one of the greater game franchises of all time. This is definitely an addition to it. I don't know if it can stand on the same platform as its predecessor yet, but it definitely is setting up for something. The first Mass Effect wasn't the best received game everywhere, so this one definitely is building to possibly another trilogy that I would like to see where it goes. It does enough stuff different that it's enjoyable, but yet has more of the same that you're used to. So I enjoyed that aspect of it so far. And the multiplayer is pretty good. I think the multiplayer is solid and definitely helps contribute to your main character storyline, which is helpful.
Oh, my turn?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. The first one as well, it did do well, but I think the series as a whole is fantastic. So it's hard to judge it off of this first game. it obviously has its issues with the, the facial, the way it looks weird at times when it's popping in and out, and so yes, there have been some technical glitches and issues with that kind of thing. But I do like it so far. I don't think it's a horrible game by any means, and it's hard to judge it on its own compared to a trilogy because it is the first one. So I think once they have the second trilogy out and then you compare the two trilogies, then I think that's more of a fair assessment. But so far I do like it. I really like the way that you can go onto these worlds and, you have the viability and you have to fix the worlds and do stuff and make outposts. And so it feels more like you've accomplished something, more lived in. When you go to these worlds, you can see how they've changed, especially like the first one, the first world that you get to go to. It's really cool. I'm not going to, obviously spoil anything, but when you go onto the first world and after you do some stuff and then you come back, it's really neat to see what has changed because of what you did.
Okay.
So I do really like this new element of it. And like I said, the skill tree is really, really cool in this one to where you can really branch it out and have different skills from different areas versus having to, stick to a finite line.
So you can play your, shoot 'em guns a-blazing, and then you can switch to biotic on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely a cool
you
addition to it.
You can only have so many skills mapped at one time, but you can switch them out anytime you want. So that is actually really cool. I like that.
Well, that is definitely a good thing. And I like the concept that you said about being able to go back and see what you've done, what you or your character or your party has done to affect something and see what transition it's made. I think that would be something I would hope more like role-playing games start building in to some of their games.
Yeah, and since you're about to start the first Mass Effect, that's a huge thing in that. Your decisions do affect the world and change it slightly as you go on. So be prepared.
I shall do my best. I know. I mean, I even have like the new Horizon Zero Dawn game, and I played about 30 minutes, and I was like, I gotta go do something, and I don't even think I reached a place to save yet. I'm going to have to do it again.
I've played many hours of that one, too.
It's just making time.
Yeah,
making time.
It is hard. It is hard to make time.
But probably well worth it, especially for both Horizon and Mass Effect, the series. Cause I can't get away from all of my friends that play the games. Yeah, in Horizon, I really love the aspect of all the crafting and upgrading and making your, the different types of bows and that sort of thing. So you'll really enjoy it. It's really fun too.
And it's got, the storyline's really good. The mystery
is definitely a really good story. Make sure you ask a lot of questions. You really get immersed in it and want to know. You really want to know what's going on and why is this happening. And so that's really neat. Awesome. I'll once I start playing it, I'll make sure to leave comments and trials and tribulations, and I'll get character facial approval from you, Ellie. Thanks. I'm going to just start my own business. I'll be a helper to all to make the perfect.
If you're going with the original Mass Effect, stick with the original Shepard. She does not accept anything else.
Oh no, yeah. I had a lot of hate for Fem Shep. I'm sure that'll make people mad at me, but. And you can ask Zenger, I love making female characters, so don't get me wrong. Usually when I do play any kind of MMO, role-playing, it doesn't matter. I always usually make an awesome, strong female character, but I don't know what it is about Mass Effect. I just tend to gravitate towards the male characters. I don't know why. As long as you're playing the game and enjoying it, it doesn't matter. Exactly. Except when Zenger makes a really ugly character. Then I can't. Can't take it. Both of you are hosts on a podcast called Zeng This, which, again, I've mentioned it in the opener, that I've made reference to it multiple times.
You guys started it. It looks like I'm on my podcast thing, so I can pull it up. It says October 17th, 2016.
That sounds about right.
Was your episode 1, and I can't remember how I found you. It was either on one of the Facebook podcast communities.
Facebook podcast community.
Okay, that's what it was.
Yep.
And so I found you through that, and I think I started off with Warrior versus Mage was my first episode.
Nice.
And apparently
and
a great choice for you then.
It was, and then I think from then I started with the episode 1 Phantom Menace, because that's the one I first left my comment on your Facebook page. Now, what was it that made you both decide to want to start a podcast, and why did you choose, I guess, this realm of pop culture, games, comics, TV shows, movies?
You want me to tackle that first to begin with?
Sure.
All right. So years ago,
Oh gosh.
This is a deeply held secret, so you're getting a real secret origin now. We attempted a YouTube channel.
Okay.
Which was along the same premise, but the videos were very short, and it was us in front of camera.
And I was kicking and screaming the whole way.
It was pulling teeth to get her to do
Yeah.
that, because it had to be in front of a camera, and she did not like it. She had a lot of fun with it, though. We both did, but it just... Doing video was a lot harder to do for me, and it just... The cost of it was just like, I don't know if we're going to try to do this. And then like a year after that, I got into listening to podcasts. And we legitimately have the type of discussions you hear on our podcast, just in general.
Yeah.
If we're riding around in the car together, if we're walking around the house, if one of us is playing a game, it will turn into us having a, discussion about, what character you think would do good with this. And now, of course, we don't get a ton of research before we go up and discuss stuff with each other just around the house, but we used to have these discussions, and it was just kind of one of those things, why don't we try doing a podcast? I think that could work. And one thing led to another. I borrowed some equipment from a friend, and we tried it out, and we've loved every bit of it ever since.
Oh yeah.
So
definitely.
the community's great. We love meeting new people. Ellie enjoys voicing her opinions and also reading listener comments and stuff, and watching our reviews and everything, and watching us get more views and everything. So, I mean, it's definitely just was awesome to be able to be a part of this and to hopefully keep this growing. I mean, we want to do so much more. We've already got stuff planned for after we're done with the Star Wars, and we're just trying to grow our brand and everything. So, So yeah, that's kind of, I guess, the origin of where the idea came from was YouTube failed us, so why don't we try not being on camera?
Absolutely. I know, for me, it's more of, I am not a camera person.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in front of the camera. I would rather just talk and hope for the best. Hope for the best on that.
Yeah. You do a good job of it.
Oh,
thank you.
Definitely.
How do you, one of the things that always interests me, because your topics are so wide-ranging, how do you, do you have, a master schedule of, here's the topics that we want to cover, and this is what we're going to, do you research, for instance, let me pull one up here, that, the most recent one, the Tommy Westphal universe. Did you that's planned, I imagine. You both do your research, and that way you can talk about it and have it. Do you just have a list of topics that you want to cover, and then you just say, what do you want to talk about for whenever you guys record? Or is it something more organic?
Well,
it's a little of both, to be honest. We want to eventually get some some listener submissions, too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I would love for people to suggest stuff. It would be really fun.
For us to discuss, but for the most part, it is kind of, we'll have a discussion one day, will lead to something else, or I'll be honest, I'll listen to another podcast or watch some YouTube video where they have an opinion about something, and I'll walk away from it going, I don't like what they said. I think we could say it better, and then just start ranting around the house for about 20 minutes and then sit down and be like, let's talk about this topic real quick.
Let's re-say that. So he has no problem with what they said. He just thinks that we could nerd it up a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
That's actually where the Tommy Westphal I've always heard of the Tommy Westfall theory / universe. I always found it interesting, and I was discussing it with Ellie at one point. There was a show we were watching. I mentioned that all of TV's connected, and that led to one thing led to another, which led to let's find all the nerdy connections we can in nerdy TV shows we like.
Yeah, because with the Westfall theory, it covers any type of TV show. There's all kinds of different genre of TV shows, but we really focused obviously more on the shows that would be something we would talk about in an episode anyway. But we, as we kind of discussed in there, we kind of mixed it to, we're talking about Westfall. We don't really think that all the TV shows are in the same universe.
Like our hard connections.
Yeah, but they're more like Easter eggs. And we thought this is a good time of year because of Easter coming up. And
April Fools
and stuff. So sometimes that's how we relate it to. Like, for October, we'll probably do some sort of themed type stuff for October.
Spooky stories.
Spooky stories. Yes, exactly.
But you mentioned Mage versus Warrior. That comes up from she'll play a game, I'll be playing the same game, and she'll ask me, how'd you get through this point? I'll be like, I just came in just shooting everything. And vice versa, she'll be like, I stealthed this area or did this or something that I can never do with my character because I'm too gung-ho into the situation. So that kind of came up from, that's where that origin of that episode came from, was us.
Right.
We don't play the same characters normally, so it's always, we have unique experiences playing the same game.
Right. Now, one of the things that I love about your podcast, besides, and I'll get to the Star Wars episodes in a minute.
I figured it was coming.
is I really enjoy your read this and watch this. And I had been, probably months ago, there was a time where I had thought about, because when I'm looking at my podcast, I always try to figure out, well, what else could I do? Who else could I go look for, talk to, or do with the podcast? And I thought, well, maybe like a book club would be kind of cool. But again, like we talked off the recording, was I don't get a lot of feedback on my Facebook page. I don't know if people would actually comment. But I really like that you both put that out there as far as either read this comic or read this graphic novel or watch this movie, and then you guys have this discussion about it, because like when I was listening to your Doctor Strange episode, I didn't read the Oath, but I had watched the movie, and I was definitely enjoying like listening to your perspectives going in, having watched the movie and, knowing what you guys are going to talk about or get your different perspectives. I love that concept.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we really enjoyed doing those. It was
yeah.
kind of, that was legitimately a huge shot in the dark for us we wanted to try it out, and we went with, our first one was Fables Volume 1, which is one of mine and her both favorite comics and everything, and that's, just to give you kind of a summation of it, it's old fairy tales, but are transplanted to the modern day, sort of.
I know. In fact, I didn't realize you guys had done that, and I just downloaded it as we were talking because I love Fables.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
And I got introduced to that thanks to the game Wolf Among Us. She had actually...
I'd already read it.
Read that, and wanted the game, so I got into it after playing the game. I legitimately, credits were rolling, I was reading Volume 1 on the couch while the credits were still rolling for the game.
Yeah, he was like, don't you have that first volume? I'm like, yes.
And we just kind of took a shot in the dark with it because we're like, we have a ton of comics. We love reading comics. We have discussions about comics we read. Why don't we give this a try? And we just kind of randomly pick ones that we think would be good, if someone's trying to get into a comic series. Because I always love when people do, if you're trying to get into something, here's a review of it. So it's not I go out and buy something. I'm like, this was garbage. I wish I had somebody warn me about this. And
that's kind of why we want to do it separate now, too. Because
we can cover a lot more stuff.
Yeah, because we like to rotate. I don't know if you've noticed, but we like to kind of rotate it and do a comic book episode and then do more based off of movies and then more based off of video games. So we kind of like to rotate it because not everybody likes comic books, not everybody likes video games. And then we felt like every single time we were doing a comic book episode, it was always a read this.
So we never got to do any of our topics anymore.
We never really got to expand out and just talk about, things that
Which
are going
Spider-Man
on. Yeah.
costume's the best.
Exactly. And so that's why we've decided to have read this or watch this or / like we just did recently where it was both. We're going to do that as a separate entity each month. That way if you want to listen into it, awesome. If you don't, then you can stick to just the regular episodes just like, So that's kind of why we're separating it.
And as we're probably going to get into with the Star Wars stuff, our Star Wars episodes are just Star Wars. So that's why we wanted to read this to be just us discussing that graphic novel or us discussing what we read or what we watched, so that if you tune into it, you don't have to wade through another discussion or us talking about current events to get to the meat of
just talk about that.
Of the stuff. So we're hoping that this will do well. We think it's going to definitely take off. We've got some very interesting stuff lined up for that. So,
yay! And that's one of the great things about podcasts is, like, I'm subscribed to a certain person, but I don't want to listen to his interviews with, like, musicians. I want to listen to his interviews with somebody else. So I don't download those episodes. I just delete them off. And I really like that, like, it gives the person the option.
Yes.
Like, I will listen to your normal episodes, but then I'll go back, like, I went back for the Magi anime discussion because I was curious to hear about that specific anime. Now, I will say, Ellie, I'm so sorry. I tried to watch the anime on Netflix, and I could not get into it.
You couldn't get into it?
I couldn't. I don't know. I don't know if I was just caught off guard by it. I wasn't expecting some of the adult content on there. Not that I don't watch adult content, but it was definitely like out of left field. I was like, whoa, hold up there.
Definitely is mature rated.
Yeah, definitely wasn't something that I was expecting, but I might give it a try when I get through Supergirl season 2 because I'm trying to binge watch that now.
Okay.
Nice.
Catch up. I've been harassed by a few people. They said, "Why aren't you watching it this year?" I'm like, I had all this other stuff that came up, and it got precedent. Now, I love your Star Wars episodes. I think, as I mentioned before, I commented on your Phantom Menace one with probably a really long comment about, like, the music and some of the other stuff that got missed out. But I love that you chose the Star Wars movie series, and I like that you're doing it with the order that you are, at least at this point, with 1 and 2, and I imagine you'll do Revenge of the Sith for next month.
Yes.
Revenge of the Sith is the next month. After Revenge of the Sith,
we're taking a break.
We're taking a break from the movies and going to do we haven't decided whether we're going to tackle the TV shows and the comics or just do just a general
like Clone
discussion.
Wars, Rebels, that kind of thing.
Or just doing a general discussion on the expanded universe.
Yeah,
like
it's so large.
What's canon now, what wasn't, what was some of our favorite stuff that they've taken out of the canon, and then we're going to, of course, do Rogue One, New Hope, Empire, Jedi, and then we're going to have another episode where it kind of fills in what we didn't talk about before.
Okay.
With the open episode, and then we're going to have, of course, Force Awakens. And then maybe we'll be able to do, if we get enough time in December, get the episode 8 in there too, The Last Jedi.
Right.
And then next year we'll have even new things for us to do an extra.
You always use that same voice.
I know.
Spooky.
So what made you choose the Star Wars movies to tackle first, as far as you doing the watch this and do the Star Wars and do the individual episode reviews?
I guess the origin of that would have been us debating how to watch the Star Wars movies. We had a constant debate of that, of, what order to watch it in, and
years. We've talked about that for years.
Yeah, that actually was one of the YouTube videos from way back in the day, was us discussing that, and ironically enough, my stance changed.
Yeah, it has.
Actually, it has changed drastically, and I know this might get me some flack. I know we're doing it in in how it happened order.
Right.
Yeah, just thought it's easier that way to follow.
But I kind of agree with the method that I talked about, where it's New Hope, Empire, then you watch the original trilogy. The prequel trilogy, then you watch Jedi. Doing it the machete method, and I kind of agree with that now, because it shows that Luke is turning to the. I know that they kind of hint at he's turning to the dark side in Jedi, but it shows that he's going through the same exact struggle his father went through, and that he could turn that easily. That it could just be just a simple thing, and I just think that emphasizes that so much better than if you watch it. Now, of course, I had no choice. I watched it as a kid, original trilogy, then the prequel trilogy, but now, in hindsight, I like the storytelling method of the machete method a little bit more. Now, Ellie, I'm sure, is still on the watch it in the order we are doing the records in.
Only because I think that's best for a child. I just think it's easier for a child to start from one and go up, so they can kind of understand. I think as an adult, obviously different ways it works better, but just being that we have kids and stuff, I think that's the best way for them to watch it.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of where we decided to discuss Star Wars and figuring out. Was thinking about, I'm like, well, if we do every episode, and then we have two kind of empty spaces, we could do every episode and then a beginning one on what order to watch it in a year, leading up to the new one. So I'm like, that's a fantastic idea. Let's try it. Worst thing that happens is no one listens.
Right.
Right.
We love to talk, and if you choose to listen, awesome. If you don't, it's okay too.
So why not take that jump to light speed?
Exactly. That's one of the things I always had debated with my kids, because they're at that age where I think they'd be okay with it now. However, I tried A New Hope on my 3 kids, and they're spoiled with Rebels because there's a lot of action.
Exactly.
And my middle son, he came up to me, he's like, Where's the Jedi and the lightsabers? I'm bored. I don't want to watch it.
It's a very good question.
And I told him, I said there's not really a lot of Jedi or lightsabers in this movie. You just have to watch it, and they all quit. I think probably 30 minutes in, Alderaan hadn't been blown up yet. Like nothing had really happened, and they were just done with it. So. Probably in another year or two, I'll make my attempt again and be like, okay, well, maybe we'll start with episode 1, because there's more action in that one, and hook 'em in that, and just do the 1 through 6 method, and add on Rogue One and 7 and all that.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely a treat to listen to, and I said it in the comment that I had left on the Phantom Menace episode, was Phantom Menace is the punching bag probably for the rest of for almost all of Star Wars.
It's going to be the punching bag. Should be.
And I had mentioned I like that you guys had stayed positive throughout your episode. I really liked that you do look for. You will knock the movies for where they need to be knocked, and Attack of the Clones definitely takes its knocks where it needs to take them. But it's definitely just something fun to listen to, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. And, obviously you guys aren't going to get through the Star Wars movies because you're doing them once a month. But I'm looking forward to seeing what you choose next, as far as, like, if you're going to go, say, Lord of the Rings, or go a different route and see which movies or movie series you guys go with next. It's definitely something that I'm just interested in.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll give you an exclusive behind-the-scenes hint. You're not far off with. We haven't decided yet. We have not decided.
Well, we were thinking about.
Lord of the Rings is a possibility. Jurassic Park, since they have a new one coming out next year, is another possibility. We kind of wanted to do something light, because Star Wars, it being as many episodes as it is, it would be hard to do another series that was very long immediately afterwards.
Right.
But we've discussed Harry Potter possibly being one. We've discussed, I would
love to do Harry Potter.
We want to get to these eventually. It's not like we're just not going to do them. It's just what order we do the next one in. But Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, Back to the Future, Lord of the Rings have all crossed our minds.
Oh, I think it'd be kind of fun to do a poll, too.
And that might be the way that this ends, too.
Yeah, if we could get people to chime in, it would be really fun to do a poll and see, maybe go off of the majority.
So we'll see what we do next. But, I mean, since you hit the nail on the head with one of them, I figured we'd drop this hint at what might be in the pipeline for us next year.
Okay. Well, I just have to say thank you to you both for coming on and, doing this with me. I had wanted to have people that do podcasts come on and join me to talk about, like, their podcasts and the things that they're interested in. And I want to say thank you because you both have been entertaining. I want to have both of you back again multiple times, probably.
Oh, we have no problem with that.
Oh, yeah, this is fun. I love it.
It has been a true pleasure to be on with you and everything. I enjoy your podcast every week. I know people who do cosplay and tons of people who do a ton of the nerdy stuff that you discuss. It's really cool to listen to get, all these different people you're able to find on.
Yeah, and it's really, I love listening to it too, just because I actually, I haven't been able to do as many recently, but I'm trying to get back into going to at least a convention every month. Because I love the convention scene. It's so exciting to see just these talented people that these ideas they come up with. It's just amazing. And I love watching when they have the contests with the cosplay and they do the skits, and they're not just going up on stage showing their costume. They actually do skits and everything. It's really fun. So I like listening to a lot of the cosplayers too.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the comment.
Yeah.
Where can people find you at? This is probably one of my favorite parts on your podcast is the way that you guys go back and forth. But what's the best places for people to check you out?
Well, you can find us, of course, on iTunes, Zeng This. You can also find us on SoundCloud,
Zeng This.
We are also on Stitcher and Google Play and Tuned In now.
Yes, Tuned In. Yeah.
And you can find us on Twitter.
He's pointing at me.
At Twitter, at Zeng This.
Yes.
You can find us on...
You're trying to make me memorize all this stuff. I usually have cheat sheets.
You can find us on Instagram.
Yes, at Zeng This.
Podcast. And you can, of course, always email us.
Oh, no. It's Gmail.
zengthis@gmail.com.
That's right.
It's a little bit more scripted when we do it at the end of our show.
He put me on the spot.
Right.
Like, hey, go. I think he was looking more for when you're like, you can find us on Twitter. Give us a tweet.
Oh, yeah.
He used to do that.
Oh. Messed it up.
Failed.
Oh, it's okay.
Play us out.
DJ Golden Boy.
I don't have a DJ. I just have a Scottish guy.
Hey, that works too.
Play us out, Scottish guy.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/talesfromthefandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.